Unbreester by Casey Miles. The knife slid from my hand as I looked over my handiwork. Her head was still attached, but she was definitely dead. Not my usual, but when you have a job, you need to do it. That was my motto. They called me the Butcher for reasons you can already guess at. I was a modern-day assassin, killing whoever I could for money. It was a pretty good living, as long as you don't count the law on your tail and the amount of blood. I'd just killed my 10th assignment, and by now the men of Ireland were starting to figure out that they were connected. That was the main reason Mrs. Dunn still had a head. The first 9 were all decapitated without much struggle. The butcher's knife I had was good at hacking, especially in between vertebrae. I walked out of the dreary house overlooking the River Lagan. By the way, my name is Devin O'Casey. As you can tell so far, I don't exactly lead a normal life. I don't like to sit on a farm all day looking at potatoes. It's not actually exactly my thing. My thing is the rush of the wind as you ride on a horse, the adrenaline you feel when you going in for the kill, and finally the sense of pride you get when a job goes according to plan. I took in a huge breath of the river air and turned right to return to my temporary employer. I hurried along the streets trying to find my employer's house. What was it again? Ah, that's right. It was next to the lightning-stricken tree and the statue of some ancient war hero that I don't feel like remembering at the moment. I hurried up the steps and found the knocker and hit it hard against the door. No sooner had I stepped back, a man appeared in the doorway. Probably the man's butler. He waved me in and I hurried to receive my pay from Mr. Duffy. He appeared just as his name suggested. Dark, ink-black hair that clashed quite well with him. Obviously, he didn't get out much. "Ah, back so soon, are we?" he said, and as a dastardly smile appeared on his face. "How is Mrs. Dunn doing?" "Let's just say she won't be telling any lies about you anymore," I explained back. "Now about my pay. This should run you about 20 groat." "20 groat? You must be insane. There's no way in hell I'm paying you that," he exclaimed in a rage. "Take 15 groat and get out." And with that I was booted onto the sidewalk. Not exactly my ideal pay, but it would have to do. After all, I'd be rich soon enough. With all of the hubbub done, I headed off down to my humble abode. If I had known it was the last time I'd see it, I would have taken more stuff, but you never know where things will guide you. On the way out, a few monks came by. Most annoying people in the world, if you ask me. In my mind, Christianity was one of the stupidest things ever. The Greeks had it right, especially since the monks' god didn't usually support the kind of killing I did. Not saying the Hellenic gods did, but they'd be more likely to. The monks asked me the same questions about letting God into my life. I just did my usual response and chuckled as I told them that they'll have fun in Hades. All of that aside, I set off onto my horse for my goal to become one of the richest men in Ireland. That involved killing the wealthiest landowner that wasn't of royalty. His name was Mr. Campbell. Campbell meaning crooked mouth. The man's reputation just confirmed how literal his name was. He was mean-spirited and didn't deserve to be rich. I urged my horse out of the city, and soon we were racing along the dirt path that led to the Campbell estate. Getting inside the house wouldn't be too hard. The kitchen was always a good place to sneak in through because of the open window for pies being cooled. As my horse and I got closer, I got a sinking feeling in my stomach. This would be my last job, no matter what. If I succeeded, I'd become quite rich, with no need to kill petty folk, and if I failed, I'd end up on the chopping block. I finally reached the manor and hopped through the kitchen window. By now the sun had fallen from the skies and the moon replaced it. I headed through the house, trying to find Mr. Campbell's bedroom, but between the darkness of the night and the lack of torches, it was tough at first. When my eyes finally adjusted, I stalked through the corridors until I came upon an ornate-looking door. Nothing new. The rich always wanted lush things. I creaked the door open carefully and tiptoed toward the four-poster bed in the middle of the room. I hesitated as I noticed his wife sitting next to him. Guess I'd have to kill them both to get to the safe. Took out the butcher's knife, which gleamed. Mrs. Dunn's blood had dried and had turned a sickly brown shade. I wrenched my eyes away from the tantalizing knife. I came to finish a job, and I always finished a job. I stepped up to the bed and decided to go for Mr. Campbell first. He had the key, so at least I could come back if I really needed to. That wouldn't be necessary, though. With one swift chop, his head rolled off his body and was about to thud to the floor when I caught it. Placed it delicately on his chest, and I rummaged through his nightgown's pockets and found the key. Now for Mrs. Campbell. She seemed nice enough, very beautiful. It was a shame I was going to have to kill her. With another swift chop, I took her head off too, and stuck it right next to her husband's. For a little prank, I wrote, "Mene Mene Tekel Upharsin" on the wall, the only Bible passage I knew. basically meaning your days have been numbered by God. I figured this fit the man as I unlocked the safe and slid all of the riches inside into a burlap sack. Not as much as I thought it would be, but enough to keep me through life. As I strode through the gates, I figured they'd be calling me Anne Buister for centuries. I mounted my horse and headed for the countryside. I set off into the sunrise. A reverse storybook ending, you could say.